Hey guys, welcome back to another build guide. Today we have an endgame Shadow Imbue penetrating shot build aimed for pushing tier 90s and up. After testing many different skills, aspects, and Paragon Board setups, this is what I found to feel the best and the most consistent with pen shot. Before we get into the build, I just want to mention some problems with pen shot that I ran into that I haven't really run into when using other skills. It was very easy to make pen shot hit upwards of 50 million with just one arrow, but the problem with having that kind of damage is you trade off consistency. Pen shot relies so heavily on crit chance, so when I was going full damage, sometimes it'd feel insane, but then when I'm not critting, it just felt miserable. And for me, going from one-shotting to using 6 shots on a single non-elite was really annoying. So you'll see that we invest pretty heavily in crit chance to make it play smooth and consistent. For our skills, we're using Shadow Step, Dash, Shadow Imbue, Pen Shot, Poison Trap, and Puncture with the specialization combo points. We also have Dark Shroud, but we aren't putting that on our hotbar. We use an aspect to have that up pretty much all the time. I wanted this build to play fast, so you'll see the playstyle is pretty similar as Twisting Blades or Flurry. Shadow Step is our CC break, but to be honest, I really used it as mobility and engage most of the time. Dash to engage and reposition, Shadow Imbue for energy sustain, and the explosions are satisfying. We use Poison Trap as a crit buff, and Puncture to build up our combo points. So a normal skill rotation would be to dash or Shadow Step in, drop Poison Trap, dash out, and just go crazy. And onto our skill tree. So starting off, we pick up Puncture with Fundamental Puncture, then onto Sturdy with Siphoning Strikes, and Siphoning Strikes actually feels really good with Pen Shot. Because Pen Shot has such a high base lucky hit chance, this procs pretty often and gives us some really good sustain. Max out Pen Shot, and then you have two options here depending on what you're wanting to do. I went with Advanced Penetrating Shot, and then I changed other things in the skill tree to make up for that crit strike chance loss. I didn't say that crit strike chance is very important for the build, but when you go Advanced Penetrating Shot, against bosses, you CC them a lot faster because of that knockdown, and then you have some extra crowd control against elites because you can constantly knock them down because we have such great energy sustain. So I went with that, but you can definitely pick up Improved Penetrating Shot if you are wanting more crit chance. And then moving on, we get Shadow Step with Discipline Shadow Step, max out Weapon Mastery. Then we pick up Concussive to make up for that crit strike chance loss. So whenever we knock down, we get another 12% crit chance. Pick up Dash with Methodical Dash. Moving on, we put 1 point into Dark Shroud and then pick up Countering for that more crit chance. Then we get Poison Trap with Enhanced to make it knock down. So that not only gives us a 12% from Concussive, but later on we pick up Trap Mastery, so we get another 12% there. Max out Exploit, max out Malice, 1 point into Shadow Crash, 2 into Consuming, 1 into Shadow Imbue, and then we pick up Mixed Shadow Imbuement, 3 into Precision for more crit chance, Frigid Finesse for that damage increase because we are going to be using Penitent Greaves. So whenever we're close to enemies, they get chilled. So we get a nice damage bonus there. Then Innervation. So Innervation because, again, Pen Shot has such high base lucky hit chance, this goes off quite a bit. So I've seen a lot of things about Pen Shot not having good energy sustain, but with this build, I've had zero problems with energy. Then, as mentioned earlier, Trap Mastery. And then for our mastery skill, I picked up Close Quarters. You could pick up Victimize or even Precision, but with Precision, the problem is because we're using Puncture, sometimes Puncture would consume all those stacks for that crit damage bonus. So it just felt better to run Close Quarters not only for the damage increase, but also for the attack speed bonuses. And the way that we would activate that is by dashing into the crowds to get that attack with cutthroat skills. So yeah, that sums up the skill tree. And onto our gear and aspects. Starting off with our armor, on our helmet we want life, armor percent, cooldown reduction, and basic skill attack speed, with cheats aspect for that extra damage reduction against crowd control. The chest plate get life, damage reduction from close, and armor percent with the aspect of might. Gloves get ranks to penetrating shot, crit chance, attack speed, and lucky hit chance with vengeful aspect for even more crit chance. Pants get life, damage reduction from distant, and damage reduction from close with the aspect of disobedience. And for the boots, we're still running Penitent Greaves as it's just a great damage increase. For our weapons, on the crossbow, get crit damage, vulnerable damage, core damage, and dex with Edge Master's aspect. When we're running around clearing, we have max energy most of the time, so it's a pretty good damage bonus. Unfortunately, my crossbow had close damage instead of crit damage, so I was missing out on a bit of damage there. For your daggers, I was using Ashira's and Condemnation. This build relies a bit on lucky hit chance, so having an extra 15% lucky hit from Ashira's and the attack speed buff felt really nice. And of course, Condemnation because the damage increase is too good to give up for anything else. If you do not have Ashira's or Condemnation, go for the same stats as the crossbow on some swords, with the aspects Rapid to replace Ashira's and Expectant to replace Condemnation. For our jewelry, on our amulet, ideally you want ranks to weapon mastery, damage reduction, cooldown reduction, and dex %. You can swap out the damage reduction with movement speed if you aren't needing the tankiness. And for your aspect, get Enshrouding. This feels super good with how much lucky hit chance Penshot has, so just shooting one arrow into a pack should generate all 5 shrouds pretty much instantly. For your rings, we want life, crit damage, crit chance, and vulnerable damage with the aspects Accelerating and Trick Shot. I would also recommend getting a third ring with Energizing and the Heart the Calculated, as this will be your CC ring for bosses to swap out. As Penshot, their boss damage isn't the best, so it really helps to stagger those bosses. And for your hearts, we want at least one Brutal socket, one Vicious socket, and the third socket can be any color. The hearts we're using are Revenge for the damage suppress, Tempting Fate for the crit damage increase, and Barber. Barber really carries this build. It makes the clear feel super good because of the area damage, and seeing big numbers makes us happy. And lastly, the Paragon boards. So the glyphs that we're using are Ranger, Combat, Chip, Control, and Exploit. And for the legendary nodes that we pick up Tricks of the Trade, Cheap Shot, and Deadly Ambush. So whenever we drop Poison Trap, we also get a nice crit strike damage bonus to those enemies as well. Other than that, you'll see that the boards stay mostly the same compared to the other builds. I just really like this board setup, and most of my builds are going to be following it. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the Paragon board. As normal, there will be a link to the D4Builds in the description below, so you can follow this more closely. And that sums up this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or improvements on this build, let me know in the comments. I do have a really interesting build I'm putting together that I haven't seen anyone do yet, and to be honest, I have no idea if it's going to be viable or not, and it's kind of a meme build, but I'm going to upload it anyway. So if you don't want to miss out on that and more builds to come, leave this video a like and subscribe. That's all for today. Have fun and take care.